Hey everyone, I'm David Caplan with abcnews.com, and this is Real Live, ABC News' live digital talk show where we break down the most buzzed about pop culture stories. All right, here with me is film and TV critic Candice Frederick. We have pop culture and political expert Mike Muse, and we have a very special guest coming up later on in the show. All right, first we're going to be talking today about the president and late night TV and the total solar eclipse. But first, let's talk about Taylor Swift. So we know there's the groping case. A jury sided with Taylor Swift, and they decided not to give her, the DJ who she accused of assaulting her, $3 million. She, in turn, got the symbolic $1 for assault. What do you guys think about that verdict and the ruling?
It's warranted. I'm glad that they sided with her. I think it's a really positive statement to make that somebody like her, somebody who has her demographic, particularly young women, particularly women who are kind of coming into their own sexuality, to state that this is not okay. It doesn't matter who you are, what you dress like, what images that you provoke.
Exactly.
It's not
now,
okay.
I think, are you getting along the lines, I think a lot of times celebrities, especially ones that sort of have, a sexualized image, there's that notion of, blaming the victim. And I think, especially when you're talking about pop stars, they're definitely very sexual looking people, right? So I think you think that sends a message really that, like, it doesn't matter how you dress, what you do, that everyone is really on the same level. If it's unwanted, it's unwanted. It's not consensual, it's not consensual.
Period.
What I like about this whole case is that she actually went forward with it, right, against adversity. And I think it sets a really good positive message and really a tone and really more so, I guess, a precedent for other women to feel comfortable coming forward to be in a position. There always is that pushback of, well, if I do this, will they try and come after me? Will they sue me? Will I get fired? And then where did that leave me economically? And I love in the statement that she released, she really talked about her privilege. She said, I recognize the privilege that I had in order to bear the economic cost, in order to shudder this responsibility for a 2 to 4 year case. What that really went to was showcase really the economics of inequalities of the justice system that we have. Yes, the scales are balanced, but sometimes money does make the scales go a different kind of way. And I love that inserted into the narrative of this social conversation because it's so important. We saw that what Jay-Z was doing with the bail fund that he did. A lot of individuals aren't able to get out of jail just because they're unable to afford the bail, which makes them last a little bit longer. And so I think by her doing that, really inserted the economics of our justice system.
And then I think, what about her role as a public figure? I mean, I think that's a huge thing. It sends a message. I mean, again, I think we've discussed this before, how celebrities, public figures, they really, they're accountable to their fans. They're sending a message. And I think to your point, don't you believe she really owed this to her fan? Like, if she didn't pursue it, what sort of message would that really send to her fans?
Complicit. Nobody wants that. And I think she has a very strong fan base that really look up to her as a role model. So if she was going to kind of not do anything or just drop the case, that shows an even bigger statement. And
I think, like anyone who's in an employment situation who feels maybe they've been harassed or assaulted, that's the same with her. I mean, there may be a lot of celebrities and other public figures. Like, listen, this was, a few years ago, that she was earlier in her career. She could have been like, you know what, I don't want to rock the waters. As we know, this was a guy, it was a DJ, it was someone in the industry. It's possible there would have been pushback from her. So I think also in that sense, it's still relatable to a lot of people. Most people don't relate, obviously, to, this Grammy Award-winning singer, but they find that they find it, that's how they make it relative, I think.
Because I think a lot of women can relate to that experience. And so I think sometimes entertainment and media, you will look at that as maybe acceptable behavior, right? And I think that she stopped that on its head and said, no. I mean, look at some of the recent events that we've had. There was a major media corporation who had a lot of issues with discrimination and harassment that happened. We see it happening in Silicon Valley currently, right? And so we're seeing this happening in other spaces and places that we're not normally used to seeing. And we're seeing women actually begin to really become empowered to push back.
I was going to say, it empowers sort of like the everyday woman. I
think it's something that everyone can kind of understand what it's like to be discriminated against or to be harassed and then to feel like you don't have a voice. Economically, I don't have enough to push back on this large company, on this large entity.
Right.
And what she is showing is that in spite of, still go forward with.
Right. Okay, so now we're going to talk about a different type of harassment or someone who thinks they're being harassed. President Trump and late night TV, right? Particularly in light of Charlottesville. And I think it's been nothing new that he obviously has been, but I think we're going to have some clips, though, first to take a look, though, at see how late night is attacking the president, though.
Yes.
Right? Are we going to do some clips? There's no sense. Okay. Sorry. Okay, no. So we're going to talk about then some late night shows. So in light of Charlottesville in particular, right? I think we saw some late night show hosts. They were attacking him or being very critical of him. But now, in light of Charlottesville, it was a free for all. You saw Jimmy Fallon, Jimmy Kimmel, Colbert, John Oliver. Everyone has been relentless, right? Do you think this is sort of late night TV getting too serious and expanding outside sort of their comfort zone?
No, I actually think it's right on the money. I think comedy has always led us through difficult times. And I think comedians actually have the liberty and the privilege a lot of individuals don't, who maybe are journalists or reporters that kind of have to report down the line and straight a narrative and suppress own opinions, where the comedians really capture the heartbeat of what's happening in America and what's happening in our society. And I think Tina Fey did it perfectly last night with her Weekend Update sketch about the sheep cating, kind of response. And I'm like, a lot of people, I feel, felt the way that Tina Fey felt, in the sense of, I'm just going to just eat my way through this, right, in order to gain comfort in this. And I think they have a way of going there in ways that others aren't able to really agitate the conversation.
But do you think they risk maybe Candice sort of alienating the audience? Like when you're turning on Kimmel, do you really want to hear his political take on, President Trump? It's like he even received a little bit of pushback, a couple months ago when he talked about his son in relation to, the Affordable Care Act and repealing it. Do you think some people they just want to turn on and they just want to see Kate Winslet talking about her next film and they don't want to talk about affordable care
there might be some people like that, but I think as Jimmy Fallon said it best, I think that as a human it is his responsibility to react to what is happening. He's living in this country along with every other human, so he felt compelled to say something. And then what I also loved about what he had said particularly was that white people especially need to speak out about what's happening. And I think, like what Mike was saying, that historically comedians have always been able to push that boundary because of the observational humor, because of them kind of just commenting on what is happening, which has really served as inspiration to their comedy. And so I don't think it's unusual to see it. I think it would be more unusual to not see it.
And I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say, it's interesting you mentioned, that these guys are like white guys. I mean, even we're talking about the late night hosts, they also are within a certain demographic. You know what I mean? There's, they're white guys. There's not at the same time diversity, and you're saying it's good to hear that speak out. That that I think it shows like, okay, it's not only, let's say, people of color who really got riled up about Charlottesville, the comments Trump made. And I can see you're nodding. Like, do you think it's good that we're at least having people outside that sort of communities that are showing concern about these issues?
Yeah, I like what both of you are saying, actually, because it's right on the money, I believe. And to bring in something you talked about during the Taylor Swift discussion was complicitness. There's one thing for them to maybe wait in the waters of Affordable Care Act, taxes, immigration. That's one thing. When you start talking about, like, neo-Nazism and white supremacy, that lends itself to a whole nother ball game. That I believe that what we're having conversation in America on now is that if you're silent, are you just as complicit? And so I think that's a question that we're asking. And they are human, and so they feel from a human perspective to say something. And what better way than under the coverings of comedy, right?
Exactly.
And satire. I mean, that's the original way of really stirring op-eds, right? It's really through this comedic piece.
And I think, when you're talking about being complicit, it's almost like when, I think, it was Jimmy Fallon, people thought, for some reason, there was this whole controversy when he was, like, patting Donald Trump's head. Remember, like, his hair, and he's making fun of it?
And the campaign.
I didn't know to me, that was, like, something a comedian would do, but I felt there was really this, like, huge backlash. It was perceived that he was being pro-Trump. And again, I mean, to play the other side, I mean, there's nothing wrong per se with being Donald Trump if that's your view. I mean, do you think this is like this inherent bias? Like, at the same time, why are all the late night comics jumping on him? Or is this the nature of Trump? Does his presidency lend himself more to being attacked and ridiculed? Or they're more left wing and they're Democrats? I mean, is that the bottom line?
I just don't think that there has been a time, even when you think about SNL history, there's ever been a time when late night comedy has not approached what was going on politically in the nation in some capacity. So I don't think that it's particularly unusual. And just to go back to what all of them were really saying, and what was interesting about seeing all the clips was that these are white male cisgender men who this is how far terrible that it had to be
Yeah.
for them to actually say something.
So I was going to say, so if you say so,
unanimously.
it's terrible. Do you think really like this is a way that we're seeing entertainment really bring comfort and sort of solace to people?
Acknowledgement.
It is, but David, and to that point right there, if you look at comedy, if you can kind of juxtapose comedy and the history of comedy to a regard with this presidency, the history of comedy, they've always kind of nudged the president's character. They haven't really nudged on policy. And if you notice, all the things they've been nudging him on as of lately has nothing to do with policy. What it has to do with is just understanding and humanity, right? And so I think humanity has trumped policy now. So really the conversation that the late night comedians and other comedians are having has to do with humanity and character. So whether you're right or whether you're left, it has nothing to do with it now. The conversation nationally has been elevated to humanity.
Wait,
and
so
I think that's where you see more of an increase in comedians maybe taking jabs at the president.
Do you think that the criticism with Trump in terms of late night TV is more personal or policy based then?
It's all personal because it goes to character. I don't think it has.
But the Charlottesville is sort of bordering on policy, though, because it's really of how he's handling issues. How he's handling, like the policy issues. So it's not, let's say, with Barack Obama, the late night host would like make fun, oh, he has big ears, or like George W., oh, he mispronounces every other word. Do you know what I mean?
But their takes weren't strictly Trump specific. They were really about the rally and then the response to the rally, And so I don't think that there are particular biases against what Trump did or did not do, did or did not say. But it's really about the state of where we're at.
And I think, getting back to the notion of comfort, I think because so many people were riled up about his comments, and of course they're riled up about the rally. That's the given. I think what happened in Charlottesville obviously hit a nerve with a lot of people. The rally, let alone all the injured and the woman who died. I think people they're turning to someone. They want some sort of comfort, and you think maybe humor is a way to sort of get that comfort in there for viewers?
I think it's two things, actually. I think the Charlottesville didn't have anything to do with the policy. I think it had to do with ideology. And I don't think there was any policy that was really associated with it. And I think that's when a lot of Americans and what the late night comedians are really addressing is the humanity ideology of what are we as Americans. And you raise an interesting point in terms of juxtaposition President Obama versus President Trump. President Obama was very measured. And so he only gave you policy.
Fair point.
Some would say he didn't have a lot of personality, some would say. Unless you really knew him, you knew him back when he was age 5. But you look at President Trump, President Trump's brand, what really even got him to the Oval Office was his character. Was his personality. So he actually is giving these comedians all the fodder because it's more character and personality driven with this administration. Every president, whether Republican or Democrat, dating back to Reagan, all brings their own personality into the Oval Office. And I think that's what you see the historical context comedians hitting on that.
Because I know it's funny, because I think if we look back in a few years...
I love my timeline, by the way.
Right? Very chronological. That's good. But I think if we look back, actually, like at this era and how late night TV covered, we're going to think of so many things that they ridiculed President Trump for. But even like I was making a joke before, when I think of Obama, the first thing is like big ears. I can't think of anything else. George W., mispronunciation, and I think that's it.
There was nothing. They attacked Bush about policy. They attacked Obama about policy. They maybe talked about his mom jeans. Or
the mom jeans.
That he had.
Interesting.
They talked also about Bush's personality as well.
That's those are the person.
Character.
All right, guys. All right, now let's talk about something literally a little bit brighter. So I want to play you a clip, which we're going to dip into the ABC News archives in 1979, and you're going to see Mr. Frank Reynolds. So let's take a look at this.
The last solar eclipse to be seen on this continent in this century, and as I said, not until August 21st, 2017, will another eclipse be visible from North America. That's 38 years from now. May the shadow of the moon fall on a world at peace. And ABC News, of course, will bring you a complete report on that next eclipse, 38 years from now.
All right, welcome Rob Marciano, ABC News meteorologist with the coolest glasses in the entire building. What's with the glasses? Or this is like a Friday for you?
This is a dress down Friday. No, these are the glasses that you'll need to wear if you're viewing the eclipse.
Which is on Monday.
Monday, depending on where you live, generally speaking, from 9 a.m. Pacific time to ending to 3 o'clock Eastern time. Moving across the continental U.S. Hence the Great American Eclipse.
Now, where can we see this? I feel like maps I've seen, they really shows it going through really the middle of the country, and people who are in the Northeast are a bit out of luck. Is that true? Like, where else can people see it all over the country, or you got to go to Oregon, like I've been seeing?
Well, if you want totality, if you want the total thing, the real deal, where the moon completely blocks out the sun, it's just a sliver of Earth, basically 70 miles wide. So you got to get in that 70-mile wide zone. There it is. You see the darkest line there. That's the path of totality. And what we've done is we've kind of put a cloud cover forecast on here. So green means good, yellow means not great, and then red, which we don't really have.
Now, are we looking? Does this integrate the actual weather forecast for Monday?
Yes.
Okay.
And we're updating this once or twice a day. Charleston is a little bit suspect. Jefferson City, maybe Nashville too. There's some moisture in there. It's hard to say, but generally speaking, it couldn't come at a better time of year. August, generally, you don't have winter storms that have dense cloud cover. It's a longer day, and it's happening right in the middle of the day when pretty much the sun is up.
And I've got to ask a quick layman's question. Why is it in that part of the country? Is it just like the way the sun is? Why is it through the middle of the state?
Well, if you think about the moon, it's moving around the Earth, and the Earth is moving around the sun. Although the moon moves around the Earth, once a month, the orbit is not lined up with the sun. It's about 5 degrees off. So that throws everything off. So that means that you're only going to get an eclipse once in a while. We actually get total eclipses once every 18 months or so. But, often in the ocean where people don't live. So it's rare to get one where people live. To get one going across the entire country, we haven't had one of these in nearly 100 years.
Interesting.
It's only happening in the U.S.
So what's the similarity between this one and then the one we just saw in 1979?
Well, same thing, except it's not going coast to coast.
Got it.
This one's going coast to coast. That one was a smaller sliver of the U.S. But look, it's still a great American block
party.
Pretty big
deal, right?
Think about all the people that are going to go into the zone and just camp out and do what Americans do in the middle of August, which is have a good time. But there's also going to be people outside of the totality. Here in New York City, Los Angeles, pretty much the entire U.S., you can go out, but you got to go. Do not look out the sun.
I was going to say, hey, now tell us about these glasses here. Why can't I just stare at the total solar eclipse and move on with my life? Or just put on a pair of Ray-Bans.
The sunglasses that you guys wear walking down the streets, which are much more fashionable, they only block out a small percentage.
I think we can try them on now, right?
You can't see much, can you?
I can't.
No, you can't see anything.
I see some light. So.
I mean, these little things, and they're pretty cheap, but they work. They
now,
block out 99.9% of the light.
All right, Rob, you got to tell us everything I want to know about these glasses. Where do I buy them? How much do you think they are? And what happens if I don't wear them?
Well, if you don't wear them, you're going to damage your eyes. Now, you look at the sun, and your photoreceptors in the back of your eye, they don't have any pain receptors. So you can look at the sun, it's going to bother you. But you're not going to know that you're damaging.
You're not going to feel your cornea burning up.
No, you're not going to know that you're damaging until really you wake up the next day and you can't see. So it's really, really important that you don't look directly.
Do you know
at
in
the sun.
past instances, let's say even 1979, do people? There must be a lot of people who injure themselves because people don't listen to the advice. I guess.
I'm sure that's the case.
They don't have Professor Marciano here to educate
them. Well,
it's
not pleasant to look at. Evolutionary speaking, it's not pleasant for us to look right at the sun. We don't typically
in general,
look away.
I have a question. We're all so busy, right, with everything. How long does this last? The actual eclipse itself.
The
I know
shadow,
how to be prepared with my glasses.
Yeah, well, I think that basically time is going to stop on Monday. I hope that bosses around the country give their employees a little bit of time to go outside. For some people, it's happening right during the lunch hour. But the shadow moves across the Earth at 1,800 miles an hour. So it's going to take about 90 minutes to go from one coast to the next in totality. But generally speaking, you're going to get a sliver of that shadow, for an hour, 2 hours, in some cases 3 hours.
That's a good time.
Yeah, so you're going to have a good chunk.
So lunchtime is the good time, is like the height. By the way, I do got to throw a plug at 12:30 on ABC News. We got a 2-hour special, the total solar eclipse. You said lunchtime at the top, right? So there we go. I got to get that in there.
But thank you for doing that.
Moving back to total solar eclipse, though. So, and I've seen a lot of footage of like the roads packed and highways, people going to Oregon, and then I read something about that wildfires it's more susceptible or something in Oregon because of the temperature. Is that true, or is there?
Well, the West it's wildfire season for the West. And they have a number of fires burning. Actually, there's one burning right now in Sisters, Oregon, which is very close to where a lot of people are.
And is that going to affect? Does the total solar eclipse in any way make the fire more powerful? There's nothing like that. Right?
It's not like a magnifying glass or anything like that. Actually, it cools the Earth for that short period of time where the sun is blocked out. So the temperature can drop 10 to 20 degrees, in just a few seconds.
What about individuals who have like solar panels? Should they be concerned?
Oh, right. Yeah, make sure the battery's on. That's a good point. It will throw some of the grid off. That for people who have solar panels, but it's not going to last that long. If you're in totality and you have solar panels, I guess don't watch the TV. Go outside and look at the solar eclipse.
Right. Okay, I just got one more. And what are you going to be doing at that exact moment, lunchtime in New York on Monday?
I'm not going to be here. I'm going to be part of the special that you spoke of. So my wife and child will be up on the roof of our building with these on.
I was going to say, you're going to hook them up?
And I hope to FaceTime them at some point and see how excited my 5-year-old is about all this. I'll be in Lincoln City, Oregon, which is kind of the first point of contact, landfall, if you will. David Muir is going to be in Charleston. Ginger Z will be in Nashville. And then a myriad of other correspondents spread throughout the country. So we're going wall to wall, I think, for 3 hours, or at least 2, as this great American eclipse happens on Monday.
This has got to be like the Super Bowl for meteorologists.
Yeah.
It has to be the Super Bowl.
Hurricanes are the Super Bowl.
Okay.
But one thing that
All-Star game, maybe?
Very close. You're right. Yeah, certainly a World Series. It's look, I'm a meteorologist, but all meteorologists are science geeks at heart. You got to study a boatload of science before you even get to the meteorology. Yeah. So this is a celebration of science, and we get picked on as science people, for being a little bit geeky or whatever. But so now we're all swelling up with pride because the tsunami that is the eclipse has taken over America. Now it's going to be cool to be a geek and wear some of these glasses.
Wear your cool shades.
This is your moment to shine, Rob.
Yes.
I think, right?
It's the moment.
You're trending.
It's the moment for our... There you go.
All right. We're not done with Rob, but real talk now. Rob, take it away.
Oh, what else am I going to be thinking about? After the eclipse on Monday, I'm going to... fly to Las Vegas. I've got my credentials for the second thing that I'm jazzed about in the next 2 weeks, which is the McGregor-Mayweather fight.
Oh, cool.
Yes, that's going to be great.
Oh, it's just going to be epic. McGregor, if you don't know, is an MMA fighter, and he's just a beast. Mayweather is undefeated. I think he's lightweight now. He's held a slew of titles, but he's 40 years old. They both talk a lot of trash. Now they're going to meet in the boxing ring. So Mayweather certainly has the advantage. He's a boxer. McGregor is just a mixed martial arts guy. So Mayweather is favored to win, but it'll probably be a big old mess. But it's going to, like the eclipse, it's going to be an event that a lot of Americans are going to tune into.
Well, this is real live, so you have to make a prediction. Who's going to win that fight? Not letting you off the hook on that one.
Look, my last name is Marciano, so Rocky Marciano is the only undefeated heavyweight champion in the world,
right?
And Mayweather is undefeated as well. So I do want to see him continue to be undefeated. I think Mayweather's going to win. And if he doesn't, if McGregor does win, it's going to take MMA and put it above boxing as the number one combat sport out there. And so if that happens, it's not a good thing.
And this is for play, right? Not work, right? There's going to be no 2-hour special with you doing this.
Well, no, it's for work too. But you're in Vegas, so you got to play a little bit.
Is the disappointed
right? Kid coming forecast temperature of the ring is going to be hot.
And the wife and 5-year-old are going to be staying in New York, so it'll be play.
Yeah, it'll be fun. What do you got cooking?
All right.
Well, with me, kind of sticking in the realm of sports a little bit, so we're on the same page. I'm going to transition with LeBron into basketball, though. So, as you guys know, I love basketball, and LeBron King James is like one of my favorite basketball players of all time. And they got announced this week that him and Octavia Spencer are going to create to the screen the Madam C.J. Walker story. For those of you who don't know who Madam C.J. Walker is, she was the first African-American millionaire when she died in 1919. And to say I am excited when I read this in Variety, it gave me chills, right? Just because one, to see this whole intersection of sports and film and history and culture, but I have been yelling to the camera and on Twitter and on email to tell individuals there's so many more unique stories to be told of the African-American history besides the traditional ones that we always go to, and we should have those too as well. But I've been fighting for Madam C.J. Walker's story to be told. So King James, I salute you, my brother. I'm so glad you took my advice in my hand. I can't wait to see it. Octavia, you're going to knock it out playing Madam C.J. J. Walker. So that's what I'm excited
Your
for.
wish came true. Candice, take it away.
I agree. I completely forgot about that, but that is righteous. I love it. So mine is The Sinner. It's a newish USA TV series starring Jessica Biel in her best performance to date that I have seen. It is a summer murder mystery. She plays a young mother who basically rolls up to a guy on the beach and bludgeons him to death.
So it's a family movie.
It's a family movie. She is with her family when it happens. She just takes a little break and then kills him. But so we know in the very beginning who did it. We just don't know why she did it, and so that's kind of like what this series explores. Great.
I haven't heard about Jessica Biel in a while.
Me neither.
Totally watch the show.
All right, sounds
Turn
good.
it around.
All right, another TV show really quickly. Everyone likes something to binge watch. On Hulu, Difficult People, Billy Eichner, Julie Klausner. If you live in New York, it's just the funniest thing to watch because they're like those people you bump in the street, you see in the subway, and you want to kill yourself if you're listening to you. So it's really funny. You watch it, and you're like, yeah, it's a bit much. All right, this is great, guys. We got real. All right, everyone, remember Monday, 12:30 at 2, our 3-hour special here in ABC. Rob, all the ABC correspondents, total solar eclipse, and make sure you wear these super cool glasses. And thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, guys.
Thank
right?
you.
Woo!
I got to get these glasses, man.
I know.